Welcome to the deep dive. We've dug through the sources, and today we're tackling a really fascinating figure, Edgar Allan Poe, someone whose life seems almost as dark as his stories.
Absolutely. And when you mention Poe, people usually think, gothic horror, melancholy, maybe a raven tapping at the window.
Right.
But our goal here is to peel back that myth, to look at the sources and find the real person, this pioneering American writer, poet, editor, critic.
And the sources really highlight how much he was breaking new ground, not just in inventing, say, the detective story, which is huge.
Huge. He's basically the father of that genre.
Yeah.
And a massive figure in Gothic literature, obviously.
But also in how he tried to live, the sources are clear. He was the first really well-known American writer trying to make a living only from writing.
Exactly. Just through writing and journalism. He's trying to professionalize it, you could say.
But the industry just wasn't there yet.
Not at all. Think
Yeah.
about it. Weak copyright laws back then, people preferred European writers.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So how did that attempt play out, trying to be a full-time writer?
Well, the consequence was pretty grim. Constant financial struggles, like always broke. He was basically an innovator paying the price for being ahead of his time. You think his stories are dark. His real life, the poverty, the instability, that was its own kind of horror story.
Okay, let's get into that background then. Born in Boston, 1809. Orphans is super young, right?
Very young. His mother died from tuberculosis, pulmonary tuberculosis. Then he was taken in by John and Frances Allen in Richmond.
But crucially, not formally adopted.
No, never adopted. And that relationship, especially with John Allen, his foster father, it was fraught. The sources show constant arguments, mostly about money.
Like with university. He went to the University of Virginia.
Yeah, but only lasted a year, didn't have the money, ran up huge gambling debts, and Allen just refused to pay them. That caused a big break between them.
So he's, what, 18? No money, estranged from his foster father. What does he do?
Something pretty drastic. He joins the Army.
The Army.
Yep. Enlisted in 1827 as a private. Couldn't support himself otherwise. And get this, he used a fake name, Edgar A. Perry, and lied about his age. Said he was 22, but he was only 18.
Wow. So the future poet is hiding out as an artilleryman.
And he was actually good at it. Rose up to sergeant major pretty quickly.
But that didn't last forever.
No. Frances Allen, his foster mother, died in 1829. He and John Allen kind of reconciled for a bit after that.
Okay.
And Poe actually managed to get into West Point.
The military academy seems like a big shift.
It was. But the peace with John Allen didn't hold. Allen remarried, had some affairs of his own apparently, and basically cut Poe off again, financially and emotionally.
So Poe's stuck at West Point, a career he doesn't want, no money.
Right. So he basically engineered his own exit.
Yeah.
Intentionally got himself court-martialed.
Ah.
Gross neglect of duty, disobeying orders,
Right.
things he knew would get him kicked out. It was deliberate, just to get dismissed in 1831.
It really shows this pattern, doesn't it? Instability, burning bridges, often linked to that family dynamic.
Definitely. And that trauma of loss, it just keeps repeating. In 1836, he's 27, and he marries his first cousin, Virginia Clem.
Who was very young.
She was 13.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to think about now, but it happened.
And then, tragically, Virginia also died of tuberculosis in 1847.
Yes. And many biographers point to this cycle, losing his mother, his foster mother, then his wife, all to consumption, this wasting disease.
They argue it directly fueled that recurring theme in his work, the death of a beautiful woman.
Exactly. It wasn't just some abstract Gothic trope for him. It came straight from his own grief, his own life.
Okay, so his personal life is chaotic, tragic,
Yeah.
but professionally, despite the money problems, he's becoming this force as an editor, a critic.
Oh, yeah. Working for big journals like the Southern Literary Messenger, Graham's Magazine. This is where he really makes his mark as a critic.
And gets to that nickname, the Tomahawk Man.
Yeah. Because his reviews could be absolutely savage.
Why so harsh?
Well, think about it. He's brilliant, he knows it, but he's struggling constantly while he sees others who he thinks are less talented getting praise and success.
So professional jealousy mixed with high standards.
Pretty much. He famously went after Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, accused him of plagiarism. Flat out.
Ouch. And he didn't like the Transcendentalists either, did he?
No, he really didn't. He ridiculed them. Called them frog pondians.
Frog Pondians, where does that come from?
It was a dig at Boston and Concord, their intellectual hub, like the frog pond on Boston Common. He was basically calling them provincial, out of touch, living in their little intellectual bubble, unlike him dealing with, actual grit and poverty.
And this critical attitude, it wasn't just random attacks. It was tied to his own ideas about writing, his literary theories.
Absolutely. He had very specific theories. He hated didacticism writing that tries to teach a moral lesson. For him, the absolute peak was originality.
And precision, right, that idea of the single effect.
Yes, that's central. He argued any good poem or short story had to be meticulously crafted, every single element working together to create one specific, pre-planned, emotional or psychological impact on the reader.
So no wasted words, no rambling. It sounds almost like engineering.
He basically said as much. Compared writing a piece to solving a mathematical problem, all calculation and logic towards that single effect. It's why his best stories feel so tight, so intense.
And he claimed he used that exact method for the poem that finally made him famous.
The Raven.
Yeah. Published January 1845 in the Evening Mirror, the sources say it made him a household name, like instantly.
Overnight sensation. Huge cultural moment. Everyone knew The Raven.
And for writing this iconic piece, this poem that defined him, he got paid.
$9.
$9.
$9. It's just, it sums up his entire professional life, doesn't it? Fighting for recognition, achieving it, and still getting basically nothing for it from the market at the time.
Still, despite the financial side, his impact was undeniable. We've mentioned detective fiction, see Auguste Dupin.
Absolutely foundational. Stories like The Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Purloined Letter.
These weren't just spooky stories, they were puzzles, logic problems.
Exactly. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself, creator of Sherlock Holmes, said Poe's stories were the root of the whole genre. Everything comes from Dupin, essentially.
And it wasn't just detective stories. He dabbled in what we now call science fiction, too.
Yeah, things like the balloon hoax, which was presented as fact. He was always pushing boundaries, playing with genres, more than just horror.
Okay, which brings us to the end. His death. If his life was mysterious, his death is.
Well, it's one of literature's great unsolved cases.
It really is.
Yeah.
October 3rd, 1849. He's found in Baltimore on the street, semi-conscious.
By a guy named Joseph Walker.
Right. And Walker said Poe was in great distress. And the really weird part, he was wearing clothes that clearly weren't his own. Ill-fitting, someone else's clothes.
And he was delirious.
Apparently incoherent, kept calling out the name Reynolds over and over, though nobody knows who Reynolds was. He was taken to a hospital, Washington Medical College, but died 4 days later. He was only 40.
Just 40. And the official cause of death listed was congestion of the brain.
Which sounds vague.
Very vague. Back then, it was often a polite way of saying someone died from complications of alcoholism.
Oh.
And Poe certainly struggled with alcohol at times.
But that's not the only theory, is it? There's been tons of speculation.
Oh, yeah. Everything from diseases, rabies, cholera, brain tumor, flu, to substance abuse, maybe carbon monoxide poisoning. And then there's the really dark one, cooping.
Okay, explain cooping. That sounds sinister.
It was a nasty form of election fraud, apparently pretty common in Baltimore back then. Political gangs would literally kidnap people off the street.
Kidnap them.
Yeah. Drag them into a coop or hideout, maybe ply them with alcohol or drugs to make them compliant, sometimes change their clothes as a disguise.
Ah, the strange clothes.
Exactly. And then they'd force these poor guys to go vote, often multiple times at different polling places, for their candidate, then just dump them afterwards.
So the theory is Poe, one of America's literary giants, might have been grabbed, drugged, used as a pawn in election fraud, and then just left for dead.
It's a horrifying theory, but it fits the known facts.
Mm-hmm.
The delirium, the strange clothes, being found near a polling place on Election Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's grimly plausible.
And as if his death wasn't tragic and messy enough, what happened immediately after was almost worse. The character assassination.
Right. Enter Rufus Wilmot Griswold.
His literary rival, and apparently someone who held a serious grudge.
A major grudge. The very day Poe was buried, Griswold publishes this incredibly vicious obituary under a fake name, Ludwig.
What did it say?
It basically painted Poe as this drunken, drug-addled, morally bankrupt monster. Started with the line, Edgar Allan Poe is dead. This announcement will startle many, but few will be grieved by it. Just pure venom.
That's appalling, but it didn't stop there, did it? Griswold somehow became Poe's literary executor.
Unbelievably, yes.
Yeah.
And he used that position to systematically destroy Poe's reputation. In 1850, he published this memoir of Poe.
The one that became famous.
Exactly. And it was filled with distortions, half-truths, and outright forgeries. Griswold actually forged letters from Poe to make him seem like a terrible person.
And the really crazy part is, That version of Poe stuck.
For decades. It was the main biography available, and honestly, people kind of liked the idea of the evil genius. It sold books. So Griswold's twisted portrait became the accepted image, even though people who actually knew Poe protested that it was totally wrong.
So Griswold basically invented the caricature of the tortured, self-destructive artist that we still kind of associate with Poe today.
He really did. It shows you the power an editor or biographer has to shape or hijack a legacy.
But thankfully, the sources show the real Poe was so much more complex, and his genius went in some really unexpected directions, like science.
Yes, this is amazing. His 1848 essay, Eureka, a prose poem. He called it his masterpiece. Not science, he said, but intuition.
And in this prose poem,
He lays out this cosmological theory. And it's startling because it basically anticipates the Big Bang Theory, the idea of an expanding universe starting from a single point.
Yeah.
This is like 80 years before the scientific theory.
that's mind-blowing, a poet guessing the Big Bang.
He also offered the first really good solution to Olber's paradox.
Remind us what that is.
Olber's paradox is,
Yeah.
if the universe is infinite and full of stars, why is the night sky dark? Shouldn't it be blazing bright everywhere?
Right.
Poe argued, again intuitively, that the universe isn't infinitely old and light from the most distant stars hasn't reached us yet because the universe is expanding. It's just, wow. For a non-scientist to nail that.
And his other non-literary obsession was codes, cryptography.
Yeah, he loved it. He'd run challenges in newspapers in Philadelphia, basically saying, send me your toughest cipher, I bet I can crack it. And he usually could.
And this fed into his fiction, like in The Gold Bug.
Exactly. That story has a cipher as a core part of the plot. But here's the kicker. That story, Poe's hobby, had real-world consequences much later. It directly inspired William Friedman,
The famous cryptologist.
America's top cryptologist. Friedman said reading The Gold Bug as a kid sparked his interest in codes. And Friedman, years later, was the one who led the team that broke Japan's PLE code during World War II.
No way. So from a Poe short story to cracking codes in WWII.
Incredible connection, isn't it? Shows the reach of his mind.
And his reach wasn't just in America. He was actually more appreciated in Europe initially, especially France.
Hugely influential in France, yeah. Thanks mainly to the poet Charles Baudelaire, who translated Poe's work brilliantly.
And through Baudelaire, Poe influence.
Oh, major figures. Jules Verne, definitely. Alfred Hitchcock cited him. And the horror writer H.P. Lovecraft called Poe his god of fiction. His shadow is long.
So wrapping this up, we've seen Poe, the constant struggler with money, Poe, the sharp-tongued critic, Poe, the inventor of detective fiction, and Poe, the surprising scientific thinker. It's a lot to reconcile.
It is. And that sense of mystery continues right up to his gravesite in Baltimore. You know about the Poe toaster?
Vaguely, this was someone who visited his grave every year.
Every single year, on Poe's birthday, January 19th, from 1949 all the way to 2009, for 60 years, this anonymous person would leave 3 roses and a half-empty bottle of cognac at his original grave marker.
3 roses for Poe, his wife Virginia, and his mother.
That's the speculation. And the cognac, well, that seems appropriate for Poe. But who the toaster was, nobody knows. Their identity is still a complete mystery.
It's kind of perfect, isn't it? Another layer of unanswered questions surrounding him.
It really fits. The
Yeah.
ritual, the anonymity, the enduring tribute.
So we know so many details about his life, the debts, the army career, his precise writing theories, but think about this. The cause of his death is still debated. He was found delirious in clothes that weren't his. Does the fact that Poe's ending itself is this profound, unsolved mystery actually help secure his lasting influence? Maybe even more than a clear-cut biography ever could.
Something for you to ponder, perhaps, the next time you read The Telltale Heart, or indeed The Raven.